Mandy is directed by Panos Cosmatos and stars Nicolas Cage and Andrea Riseborough, and is about... what? How do I describe this film? Right, on the surface, it's basically your stereotypical revenge plot. But after seeing the film, there's actually a little bit more to it than that I kind of don't know how to describe. I was intrigued by this movie for, I think, the same reason everyone else was. I just want to see Nick Cage doing batshit crazy stuff with some over-the-top violence in it. And yeah, I kind of got that, but I got something else as well that I wasn't quite expecting, and I'm not quite sure whether I liked it. Overall, I think the movie is pretty good. But there are certain things about the movie that are questionable, which I'll get onto in a minute, but this is definitely not the movie I was expecting it to be, at least not all of it. So first off, I'll start with the positives. Nick Cage gives arguably the best performance of his entire career in this movie. Well, at least the best I've seen from him anyway. Once the movie really gets going, it takes full advantage of his zany, bizarre acting style and just really goes all out. And once it really does that, I think he's on top form and the movie actually kind of gets better for that. The other performances are also really good as well. Andrea Riseborough is pretty good for what she has to do in the film, and all the other actors in the film are really good and are at times quite off-putting in a sense. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I mean. But there's always something about the way that everyone acts in this movie that just kind of seems a bit off. And there's some characters in particular, especially when you meet the bad guys of the film, and it just kind of takes that off-putting nature and just kind of times it by 10. And yeah, I thought for what they were going for, the performances were, in that sense, pretty good. The cinematography in this movie, for the most part, is pretty damn good. It's very hypnotic, very colourful, and it's very clear that there's a certain aesthetic that the director is going for, and that aesthetic kind of bleeds into other aspects of the film, like the score by Johan Johansson, which is just amazing. But yeah, there is definitely a certain style that I think the director's trying to capture, and I don't think there is any other film where I can describe the cinematography as intense. It's quite garish at times and quite in your face, and for the most part, like I said, for the most part it does work really well. But, and this is quite a big but, there are a few times where the look of the movie can be a bit too much. Especially in the first half of the movie, there's a few shots in particular that solely rely on one main distinct colour lighting to fill up the entire shot. And sometimes it works because there is, you know, a backlight of a different colour, but there are other times, for example, there's a shot of Nick Cage and Andrea Riseborough just sitting in bed talking, and the entire shot is just lit with this bright, intense blue light. And it can actually be quite straining on the eyes. And there's a couple of moments, especially in the first half of the film, that do that. The way it's been colour graded, the way they've added effects to make it look like the style and aesthetic they're going for, and as well you have the lighting. Sometimes it can be a bit too much and a bit over the top that it can actually kind of hurt your eyes at times. So yeah, in terms of that sense, it wasn't that good in places. But when the second act gets going, I think the cinematography becomes a bit more focused and less garish, and it becomes a lot more better because of that. I suppose while I'm talking about the problems that I had with the movie, I might as well address the pacing. Even though I think, for the most part, I think the slow pace works, I can see it being an issue for quite a lot of people. And like I said, I think the slow pacing works for the majority of the film. But in the long run, when I then think about the overall movie, I do wish it had kind of got to the point a bit quicker. Because the entire first hour of the film, and the movie's 2 hours long, the entire first half of the film is very slow, quite meandering, and is a little bit tedious to get through. That being said, the entire second half of the film is exactly what I was expecting to see in this movie. Over-the-top blood and violence with an insane Nick Cage performance to boot. The first half of the film feels like a completely different movie to the second half, and I know it's intentional because the way it plays out, that's kind of the point. But it's just something that is a bit hard to get used to. The fact that the first half is slow and feels completely separate to the second half, which is pretty much just an all-out bloodbath of events. I also feel as if this is a movie you kind of have to be in the right mood to watch, because to me at least, it kind of all came across as a bit style over substance. Yes, I am aware that there are some quite clear themes and ideas on show. I mean, you can't ignore them, they're kind of shoved in your face. But at this point, I'm still not 100% sure what those ideas and themes are trying to get at. Because the way they're presented, especially in the first half of the movie again, is just so stylistic and so in your face that it can actually be a little bit obnoxious. Again, this probably depends on what your tastes are, and you might like that kind of thing. But to me, I thought the style and overall aesthetic of the movie was a bit too much at times, to the point where the substance kind of gets lost in translation. In the end, I'm going to give Mandy a 7.5 out of 10. Once the movie really gets going, it's actually quite enjoyable, especially with how over the top the violence is. But it's just that first act that drags, that I can see as being a bit of a turn-off point for a lot of people. And yeah, if it had just got to the point a little bit quicker, then I think the rating and my overall opinion on the movie would be a bit better. So guys, that was my review of Mandy. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bye!